Yeah, we back. Now this is going to be a very short video, at least I hope so. And this video is going to be about, listen, in order for black men to become powerful, in order for black men to become wealthy, in order for black men to have economic and political leverage on the world geopolitical stage, listen, we are going to have to become heartless, even more heartless, and have a singular focus towards our objective and be able to stomp on anybody that stands in our way of achieving our objective. Now, why do I say that? Now, if you're someone with a basic knowledge of history, you understand the current world powers, the nations that currently dominate the economic and political landscape. Now, of course, we have some rising powers and the geopolitical landscape has kind of changed in the past century, but for the most part, the wealth and power is still concentrated in the hands of what I call the European colonial mafia, what they call the international community or the Western powers, depending on how you look at it, right? Nations such as the United States, UK, France, Spain, and then you have the other powers that kind of like fell off. Spain is not really the super world power like it was back in the day. Portugal, as we know, is a dump now. Portugal pretty much fell off and they were like the first slave traders and, they completely have nothing to show for it in the modern day. And in an ironic twist of fate, even Brazil, I think, has become more powerful than the state of Portugal. So today I want to talk about black men must become heartless to achieve wealth and power in the current landscape. And why do I say that? Well, guess what? The wealth and power of the world is concentrated in the hands of a few countries that all participated in the transatlantic slave trade. The original fortunes that they accumulated were all built from the transatlantic slave trade, and from there they branched out into different industries. The Industrial Revolution popped off, and then different industrial complexes popped off, and they continued to build off that original seed capital created from the transatlantic slave trade, right? But they originally got the wealth and the foundation from human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and during that process, hundreds of millions of our ancestors lost their lives so a bunch of white boys in Paris, Washington, London, and various different places can get rich. And from that, they have remained rich, and they do not plan anytime soon to pay you or me reparations. That money is staying in their bank accounts, and they're going to pass it down to their kids, and they don't give a damn what you think about it. Why? Because morality does not exist. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, I've been saying that for a long time. I think my first video on my channel that I uploaded was actually called Black Men Must Understand That Morality Does Not Exist. Like, I've been pushing this message since I first started on YouTube. And the reason I say that is, well, for the most part, I'm Haitian. And if you want to get a picture of morality not existing, then you can just understand how the quote unquote international community, the European powers, the world powers have treated Haiti, and not just Haiti, but black people in the Western hemisphere all the way to the continent. And so much wealth has been accumulated and consolidated that now us as black people, we leave our countries to go to these countries that were built off the backs of our ancestors, countries whose wealth was built off the blood and the sweat and the human sacrifice of our people, right? Now we have to leave our impoverished areas that have been decimated and plundered and pillaged by the Western powers to now seek a better opportunity under their jurisdiction, on their territory, pay taxes to their governments. Now, let's understand how this wealth was accumulated, right? How far were they willing to go to amass the wealth that they currently enjoy today, that they'll never give back? Today, we're going to read two passages. One, we're going to talk about what they were doing as they were accumulating this wealth. And number two, what they did in order to preserve this wealth, how far they were willing to go to maintain their wealth and power, right? So the first slide is going to be what they did to accumulate it and what they were willing to do to keep it and preserve it. And then in conclusion, you can get an idea why you always hear me on my channel saying things like morality does not exist, fairness does not exist. It's about what you can get away with, what you have the power to do, what you have the money to do, what you have the leverage to do, what you have the strength to do. Might makes right. All right. That's what I believe. Might makes right. Yeah, I shouldn't be able to take what you have, but if I have the strength to take what you have and you don't have the strength to get it back, well, guess what you have now belongs to me, and I'm gonna keep it, and I'm gonna laugh in your face if you try to take it because you don't have the power to overtake me. So listen, let's get into the passage. Let's get into it. At the bottom of the social scale were the Negro slaves, nearly 500,000 of them. Although they outnumbered the whites and the gens de couleur nearly 7-1, their potential strength was yet to be recognized. They were treated, with few exceptions, with the most savage and inhumane cruelty, subject to the slightest whim of their masters, the European Frenchmen, right? We gotta give the name to the people who committed these acts of atrocities because it kind of detaches them from what they did. When we talk about, the master, the colon, no, the white boys from France. And obviously what the white boys from France were doing wasn't much different than what the white man from England was doing, the white man from Spain was doing, the white man from Portugal was doing. Listen, they were all in league and within the same human trafficking operation, the same human trafficking enterprise. They were all involved in committing the same atrocities. But in this video, we're going to focus on the atrocities of the European Frenchmen. All right, let's get back into it. Subject to the slightest whim of their masters, they had no redress. Minor disobedience was punished with the severest penalties, and even a suspicion of insubordination or an attempt to escape brought mutilation or death. It was no uncommon occurrence for a slave to have his ears, arms, or legs cut off, or to be buried alive. On one plantation, a slave was nailed to the wall, and at the end of the day was forced to eat his own amputated ears. On another plantation, all slaves had their tongues cut out. Apparently, unlimited and unrestricted power over the Negroes awakened only the most bestial and depraved instincts of their masters. Unheard and unregarded, the plantation slaves labored from daybreak to nightfall under the whips of the overseers, while the household Negroes were at the mercy of the base desires, the irascible moods, and the diabolical sadism of those whom they attended. Death, whether from fatigue, sickness, accident, or the deliberate brutality of the whites, often came as a relief. So yes, it was actually a relief to be dead back in those days for a black person, you know. And all of this was done just so a bunch of white boys from France, Washington, London, etc., can accumulate wealth they continue to enjoy still to this day, wealth that they'll never give back, not without a fight anyway. And why is that? Because morality does not exist. So when a black man understands that morality does not exist, he'll stop preaching things such as, equality and things like that. And he'll start, chasing power for himself and his own people, just like every other group of men is doing. And all the luxuries that have been established in the Western world have been built off the foundation of this bloodshed and this brutality, and they're not ashamed of it. So listen, this is the world we live in, black man. So you have to understand where you at and get adjusted to the territory and pretty much adapt to your surroundings. And when in Rome, you do as the Romans. All right. To accumulate and preserve power, you must be able to go to the lengths of your opponent, right? Your opponent is willing to overthrow governments, plunder and pillage, install puppet regimes, sanction people until they starve to death, move factories overseas where the minimum wage is like 75 cents per hour. Like, still to this day, you have to be willing to go through these lengths to achieve power for your own people. Because life is like sports, right? If we play in soccer and I'm trying to play fair and square, but my opponent, he got a pocket knife, he tripping me and stabbing me and he punching me when the ref not looking. And so how am I going to win the game if I'm not equally willing to bring a pocket knife to the field, to the soccer field, so when the ref not looking, I poke him in his back or I poke him in his neck. You know what I mean? You have to be able to play dirty. If everybody's playing dirty, why are you playing clean? Why are you preaching to be clean? Everybody is dirty. Everybody is filthy. So get in the mud. That's my mentality. You could say I'm wrong. You could say I'm not going to get into the kingdom of heaven, but me, I want to build my kingdom on earth. I want my children and grandchildren to be able to enjoy a kingdom on earth, because for the past 500-600 years, we've been enjoying hell on earth, and everybody else has been enjoying their kingdom, establishing their kingdom off our backs and the rivers of blood that we've been shedding. So listen, how come we can enjoy wealth and power for once, but the mentality has to be there? You have to be willing to go to the lengths of your opponent. And as it stands, I don't think black men are willing to go to the lengths of their opponent. And I'm not saying we got to do what is written on this passage, but you have to be at least willing to take it all the way there. Like I said in the analogy of the soccer field, if your opponent is coming onto the field with weapons and pocket knives and punching you and stabbing you and tripping you when the ref not looking, then why you not doing the same too? Bro, let me tell you, back in high school, right? I was playing on the varsity soccer team, and I remember we were playing against this one team, and this one dude, man, I don't know what it is. He just had beef with me, bro. He was like punching me in the stomach, elbowing me in the stomach, like he was tripping me when the ref not looking, slide tackling me. For the whole game, I was like, yo, I'm sticking to this man, bro. I'm defending him the whole game. And for the rest of the game, when the ref was not looking, bro, I'm elbowing him in the chest, bro. I'm tripping him. I'm slide tackling him. I'm pushing him off the bro. I'm telling you, bro. Every time you see me for the rest of the season, bro, it was beef. But listen, that's my mentality, bro. If my opponent is playing dirty, I'm not going to take the moral high ground. Now, why do I say that? Because in this world, you realize that people only respect the winners, right? It doesn't matter how you won, right? Listen, this passage that I just read, we were talking about the French colonists, right? The French planters, the French plantation owners, right? But what is the image of France in the modern day? The image of France in the modern day is it's a lavish country, romantic country. We want to come vacation. This is where people want to come get married, come do their honeymoon, come to the museum, the Louvre, even though many of these museums contain trophies of war that were accumulated when Africa was being plundered and pillaged and colonized by the French. Just like the museums in London, they contain many artifacts from ancient African kingdoms that were stolen when these kingdoms were invaded, plundered, and burned down, right? So listen, nobody cares how the wealth and power was accumulated. They just care that it's accumulated. They just care that you have it, and they respect the fact that you have it. They don't care how many people you had to step on to get it. They respect the fact that you are wealthy and powerful. And that's the mindset of the planet. That is the world we live in, black man. So it doesn't matter what moral high ground you have. Oh, I'm moral, I'm righteous, I'm this, that, and the third. Yeah, but you're broke. Yeah, but you're broke. Yeah, but you don't have anything. So nobody respects your morality. They respect the criminal. They respect the crook. They respect the thief. They respect the man who has no moral compass. Why? Because he has the wealth and power, and everybody wants to be around the winner. So this is why I have the mentality I have. So some people may get confused when I say things on my channel like morality does not exist, black man. Achieve power by any means, black man. Now, let's go into the next passage, right? In this passage, we are going to travel to the end of the Haitian Revolution, right? In the beginning, we spoke about what the European French colonists were doing to achieve their wealth and power. Now, let's talk about the lengths they went. Let's talk about how far they were willing to go to maintain their wealth and power. As their most prized possession, their richest colony, Haiti, was lost at the hands of the Haitian rebels. Let's talk about it, man. Let's jump into this passage right now. Perhaps the strongest evidence of Christophe's belief in the sincerity of the French was his action regarding his eldest son, Ferdinand, then 9 years of age. Desirous that the child should enjoy the privileges of French training, Christophe placed him under the care of General Boudet, who was returning to France. This is a white man, General Boudet, and provided ample funds for the boy's education and maintenance. You know, Christophe had that paper, going all the way back since his 20s. Christophe been having money. His trust was misplaced. His son was soon thrown into an orphan asylum in Paris, where he died, neglected and in want. So let's talk about it. As you know, if you've been following my channel for a while, I dropped a video months back, or maybe like last year, a while back, and I spoke about how the 11-year-old son of the Haitian king lost his life at the hands of the French government in the year 1805. Keep in mind, this was the year after Haitian independence was achieved, right? And before independence was achieved, General Christophe, before he became King Henry Christophe, he actually sent his son to France during peacetime, when the war was not hot, before the French invaded, right? Because the custom of the colony was the elite men of the colony would send their children over to Europe to enter the military academies, to go to school, get an education. When they would come back, they would come to the colony, inherit property, become involved in politics, commerce, etc., etc. So Christophe, being a young black man with paper back in them days, a respected general on the island, he sent his eldest son, Franz Ferdinand Christophe, over to France to get an education. And unfortunately for the young boy, the French government decided to send an expedition in 1802 and invade the colony to put everybody, including his father, back in slavery. Now, of course, they were unsuccessful, but because the boy was still in the possession of the French government over in France, what they did was, I'm assuming they tried to negotiate with Christophe, like, listen, we got your son. And Christophe, being the man that he was, listen, if you saw my video, my audiobook that I released on Christophe last month, go to my playlist section. It's called The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years. Christophe was a man who was honorable to the highest degree, meaning that even if the French government decided to bribe him and say, we got your son, Christophe was like, bro, I'm standing on principle. I'm standing on business. Like, you can have my son if that's the case. I'm not about to sacrifice. I'm not about to betray the revolution, right? So as we can see in the passage, the French went on to take the life of a young black child, around the age of 9, 10, 11 years old. Now, of course, this is nothing new for the French government, because the instructions given by Napoleon was to assassinate everybody over the age of 6, meaning everybody over the age of 6 was to be seen as an enemy combatant and have their lives taken. This is what Napoleon told his generals to accomplish, right? Now, of course, they failed and Haiti gained its independence, but when you see that they would take the life of a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy, that's nothing, because guess what? Everybody over the age of 6 was supposed to lose their life in the expedition, right? So listen, this is the length that the Frenchman was willing to go, and it was no different than what the American white boy was willing to do, the British white boy was willing to do. All the European powers, the European colonial mafia, as I call them, they went to Africa, colonized Africa, did the same thing, was chopping people's arms, legs, and ears off, all that, bro. And even still to this day, the foreign policy they maintain and the puppet regimes that they prop up overseas, especially in black countries that are resource rich, they make sure these countries remain poor and impoverished. They make sure basic things such as education and food and water remain a luxury in these nations for many reasons. Number one, it allows them to acquire natural resources at a massive discount, but it also gives them a market of cheap labor, right? So people can work on like cocoa plantations out in Ghana. People can work on various plantations. They got factories out in Haiti, people working for like 75 cents an hour, so they keep these nations extremely poor. So the natural resources remain cheap and the people, their labor remains cheap. And also, all the people who got a few dollars to rub together, they end up leaving the country, which creates a massive vacuum, a massive brain drain. So all your doctors and specialists and scientists, they're all leaving the country to go work in Europe and America and paying taxes to those governments, enriching their economy, right? So the colonial mafia, as I call it, will forever remain rich and prosperous, and the black world will forever remain impoverished until black men become as ruthless, as fearless, and as heartless as our enemies. Because like I said, at the end of the day, nobody respects a loser. People only want want to be around the winners, and they do not care how you won. Why is that? Because guess what? The United States is the most respected and the most feared nation on the planet, and they did that by being as ruthless and as heartless and spilling blood everywhere they can and crushing everybody who stood in their way, and even bullying people that didn't even stand in their way. Even people who weren't even bothering them, they went and bullied them and stole from them too, just because they had the power to do so, because might makes right, as I always say. So yeah, black man, you could say, oh wow, we can try to, call Europeans colonizers as a way to make fun of them, but is that really an insult? Colonizer is another word for conqueror. Basically another word for winner. You know what I mean? So listen, at the end of the day, people can say all they want, but people are coming to the colonizer countries. That's where they're coming to establish their families and seek a better life. Why? Because the colonizer countries, they won, and people want to be around the winners. They don't want to be around the losers. Doesn't matter how righteous or moral you are. People can't feed their families off morality. They can only feed their family with wealth and resources. So listen, at the end of the day, black man, you have to change your mindset. You have to put the Bible down and pick up your machete. You have to put your Bible down and pick up your shotgun. You got to put your Bible down and put on your war boots. You got to put your morality to the side. Put your heart to the side and put your heart in a freezer. Make sure your heart is cold. All right? Because like I said, if you got an opponent, if you're on the field of battle, if you're on the sports field, I should say, and the opponent is coming on the field or the basketball court with a pocket knife, and every time the rep is not looking, he's stabbing you in the leg, he's stabbing you in the shoulder, he's stabbing you in the stomach. Well, guess what, man? Next time you come to the field, you better come with your pocket knife. That's all I'm going to say. It's your boy, Nefkari Desaline. Back in the building, yes, indeed. Go on, peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Pay for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This shit is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.